This is our rep from the Country Lunch Show on WOOL 91.5 FM. And we're sitting here today with Paleo Mountain Man and BudCat7. So let's get back with the last part of our interview on January 29th, 2020.
I got a
Sure.
question. I got a question. Okay, you say similar stone walls have shown up in California and Vermont. Now, does that mean that these people had a certain intelligence and lived a certain lifestyle at that era, or does it mean they communicated with each other
It could
somehow?
mean both. It could mean both. We feel that these cultures were probably connected with each other, as we know from history that the Indian tribes of the Northeast, the Native American Indian tribes of the Northeast, knew about all the other tribes in the United States. And of course, we know from researching the Adena and the Hopewell, the people who built most of the mounds in the center of the country out into even Pennsylvania, and I believe in New England as well, that they had long distance trading networks, because when they unearth these mounds and they get the artifacts out of these mounds, they find items from far distant places, from the shores of the Pacific, from South America, etc. So they had long distance trade networks. And I just did a video last night about copper casting, that these ancient peoples were casting with copper, molten copper into molds that they made in the ground, some in a period of time over 5,000 years ago. And as Jimmy says, we're talking about prehistory. It could go even further back. Now, where would these primitive people, who were supposedly Stone Age people, get this knowledge of metallurgy from? Did they just come upon it themselves, or was this something that they got from this worldwide engineering culture that we've been talking about and exploring, and other people we're associated with have been exploring? These are the questions we have to ask, because it seems like these people in the ancient past had any number of skills that would be comparable to those we have today: engineering skills, astronomy, mathematics, construction, engineering, metallurgy, even as far as etching, like the Hohokam, for instance, who also were involved with metallurgy. And we're talking about a period of time somewhere about 7,000 years ago. Okay, so you see a high level of technological skills from that period of time. And where did these people get it? Because, for example, etching with acid, right? The Hohokam people of Snaketown, Arizona, who happen to be people of a different morphology and a different phenotype, more similar to these giant hominids or humanoids, they were able to etch shells, like seashells. And etching wasn't discovered until 500 years later, from when they determined it, in Europe by the European armorers and people like Hans Albrecht, who were doing art with etching. So these people discovered etching, or knew about etching, some 500 or 600 years before European armorers even knew about it. So where did they get that from?
You know what runs through a lot of these stone walls also, and the people that constructed them, is sacred geometry and a balance in nature. And the way they constructed things, they put that in it. And they divided the earth through their geoworks. And to them, that was sacred geometry, dividing the living space with the cemetery space, or where the spirits were, and things like that. And they had a personal...
Where the administrative space would
Right.
be, where the public
Exactly,
spaces would
but
be.
they did it not just with stones like they did up here in the Northeast. They did it with geoworks, earthworks.
Earthwork.
That's real
Yeah.
common, and most people know about the earthworks, but not the stone. But it's the same thing. Up here they had stone, and like you say all the time, the stone was here, so they used stone.
But
And
you know what's funny, Jimmy, is that more than the earthworks in the middle of the country and elsewhere in the country, more so than anywhere in the country. The Northeast has a combination of all those things. Not only do we have, stone walls, cans, effigies, chambers, serpent walls. Not only do we have that in the Northeast, but we also have earthworks.
We have mounds also.
We also have the earthworks in the Northeast. So here in the Northeast, almost every element of the types of styles of things we can find elsewhere in the country are all contained together here in the Northeast, and that's what makes the Northeast so special.
Plus, from my research, I've seen that the Northeast was the push-off point. People migrated from the Northeast into the country. They didn't come the other way.
Exactly.
And as you get into Ohio...
And that's very interesting that you say that, because when mainstream academics study the movements of the progression of how these native peoples, we're talking about native peoples, not talking about the archaic culture, but the way the native peoples settled the lands here on the eastern side of the North America, was that it was from different directions than they expected. So it's interesting that you say that. But not only that, too, is because of John Jensen's work, and we have these artificial harbors up and down and canals along the east coast of North America here, that there was obviously a large-scale operation for export and import of goods and items and resources going on the northern seaboard of the country. And that's the artificial harbors that are here on Long Island from 7,000 years ago, as John Jensen states, just a strong indication. And it seems to be that's when the time that the walls were built and in full operation, that some of these walled areas demonstrate some activity along those lines of some of the large-scale distribution and movement of material down along the river systems to the Long Island area, where it sat in these artificial harbors awaiting, shipping to come in and pick up these goods.
Did you know the oldest mounds known in the country come from northern Maine and Canada, up at the coast? They date to over 10,000 years.
Many of them are made of stone. They're not even earthwork.
They're earthwork.
Pyramids.
Yeah, some are stones, but they're basically small, low mounds with red ochre layers. Not burials always, but they would bury tools in them, things like that. And there was a culture not many people know about 10,000 years ago on the northern coast up there that hunted on the North Atlantic in boats. And they know that because they found remains of swordfish. They call them the swordfish hunters. And they used stone harpoons that they ground out of slate stone. Really beautiful looking artifacts. This is 10,000.
Rather large ones at that.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Have these large harpoons that couldn't be handled by anybody today.
And they found these in these mounds in some places. And these are some of the oldest mounds known. That's why I say the migration happened from that direction towards the center of the continent. And I think from the other direction also.
That. You're not the only one. So
there's also a lot of connections
possible.
between the Olmecs and images from that part of the world. And even the people looked similar to those people in ways.
Yeah, the language that's in the walls, the stone language, the built-in stone geoglyphs that are built into the walls, may have been a precursor to the Mayan and Aztec languages. You know, if the movement of people is like you say, and I've heard other people suggest that too, that the movement of this culture went diffused down through Central America into South America, so you could make a case for that language that's in the stone wall being sort of improved upon and represented by the Mayan and Aztec art and even Incan art.
Well, what I know is the older the walls, the more well built they are, and that's why they're still standing. And they're dispersed throughout with hollow chambers. They're acoustic. They tend to be built on ledges. They look at the horizons and the stars, and they have quartz interlaced in with the stones. And they're carefully built. A lot of the stones in these walls are carved, and they have notches in them. And you can't pull stones out of them. You cannot pull the stones out. They're all pressed in, and they all hold each other together. That's how well built they are. It was a technology
like
that's
a puzzle.
lost. It's
like
a
a
technology
puzzle.
that's lost. And
But you could see by the serpent wall that's on your property, for instance, a clear way of building techniques. Like, for example, they put the flat stones on the bottom in the serpent wall construction at your property there. They put the foundation for the sculpture that they were going to make. So it seems there's a pretty clear plan on how they were going to construct this thing.
each
So,
section of the
as
wall
you said,
is,
it's constructed
was
on
well
ledges,
planned.
but they often prepared the surface too.
Yeah, you can see how they constructed each section of the wall as a different project. And the back wall where the cavemen are, that looks on the eastern horizon, it's probably 40 feet long, that one section between these giant boulders. And it has all this information in it.
A lot of stuff.
That's
A lot of stuff.
That's the section of the wall that changed my mind about everything. When I looked at that closely, I said, "There's something going on here that I need to figure out because now I don't know what's going on." And from then on, everything I asked myself went up against everything I knew.
And you see, that was such an amazing revelation because it inspired not only me, but it inspired a whole lot of other people in the work and research that we've done on our YouTube channels. It's inspired a lot of people to go out and take another look at these walls, another careful look at these walls, and as they're doing it, they're starting to see the different things that are built into these walls as well. So,
and the more people that do it, the better. And the more ideas, the better. And the more eyes looking on them, the better. And a lot of it, and I believe the language in the walls is an intuitive language. It doesn't say A, B, C, D, E. It says A, B, C, D, E, D, B, C, D, A, however you want to say it to you. It gets its information across you intuitively. And that's how you read them, intuitively.
It's in art language.
It's also
similar to that of like the codices there of the Mayans and the Aztecs. It's in art language, similar to like the Chinese with their pictograms.
You know what I was thinking also? With those stones, the rectangle stones and the round stones, it almost sounds like a sound. Maybe you sing
like
sing
I
the
said,
language.
and I had said it to Phil on his channel and his research about the nubs. Could they be musical notes?
Exactly. That's what I thought
because
too.
music can be used as a language as well.
Yeah, he's really interested in figuring that one out, and it's perplexing because they're even on lingam stones in India, little nubs. I've seen them.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Why would you build a beautiful lingam and leave a nub on it?
Right.
Why would you do it?
Unless it's to say something.
Yeah. And it's an interesting subject because they're found everywhere. It's like megalithic buildings; they're found everywhere. We sort of,
including the U.S., but there's very little of that.
Well, Windsor County has more megalithic buildings, I think, than anywhere, and constructions. They're just everywhere in the woods, and that includes the stone walls. And if you look at them now with a different eye, that maybe they are megalithic construction. You'll start seeing the differences in the different walls, and you'll find that the very straight and true walls that took astronomers to build are the oldest walls, and they have the serpents in them, and they have quartz in them, and they have effigies, and they're
all
built.
Sorts of things.
It's incredible when you see it. It changes your whole paradigm on everything you've learned because who built this? How come I
Yeah.
haven't seen this before? How come they're telling me this is a farmer's
This is
wall?
a major, major revelation. I don't
Yes.
know if we'll ever get any credit for it, a long time from now, but this is a major revelation about these walls, and it was Jimmy and I that discovered this, and it's just phenomenal. I would love to spend the rest of my life just looking at stone walls and trying to make sense out of them.
And you know what they will do? They'll change your life so much that they'll heal your spirit and soul and body and mind, and they'll confuse the hell out of you while you're going through all of it, but it leaves you in a better place. So I think they were
It
put
does.
up as a learning tool, as a spiritual tool, as a cohesive tool. Whoever built them, they're not there to worship anything but nature and the balance of nature. And
I can tell you this: when I lived in the forest in the Green Mountains up there in rural upstate Connecticut, in the Green Mountains there among the stone walls, I was so at peace being there. I just being among the stone walls in that area just was just so peaceful, so tranquil there. I loved being there among the stone walls, and I was not, frightened at all or spooked or creeped out or anything like that. It just felt just a total sense of peace
that's one of the
among
purposes, I
the
believe.
stone walls
You're
there.
saying that you found a timeless space.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely,
That's why they made them
absolutely.
sacred spaces.
You can find out more by visiting Paleo Mountain Man or Stonewall Research BudCat7 on YouTube.